Death was close. We started our day at 4 a.m. and had been stuffed into AAVs all morning. Didn't help that it was the middle of July aboard Camp Lejeune, which meant suffocating heat no matter where you went. On top of all that, each AAV was overpacked with gear and personnel. There wasn't enough bench space on these things to accommodate the amount of people we threw in them. A lot of the guys were sitting on top of gear as well as sitting on top of each other. We made our way to the beach, and thankfully when we got there, we were able to get out of them and stretch for a while we waited on the ship to show up. But as the green weenie giveth, he also taketh away. While we were sitting out in the blistering sun, our company realized we ran out of water. It was so hot that enough people went through all their water that command had to call back to the barracks and send guys with jerry cans with a water resupply. While we were lined up refilling our water sources, we heard someone scream, "Load up!" Everyone let out a little groan and got back into the AAVs. The second the ramp shut, we could feel the temperature spike, what felt like another 20 degrees. After we sat a while longer, the AAVs started up and made their way to the ocean. I looked around and noticed at least half of my track looked like they were ready to pass out. I felt the AAVs start to float. We were finally in the water and headed to the ship. For me, I was relieved because I knew that this would soon be over. But some of the other guys looked as if they were trapped. Which we kind of were. I mean, we can't put the ramps down, and popping the top of the track was ill-advised because it would just invite water into the craft to possibly sink us. Fairly quickly into the ride, we had our first guy throw up. The stench of his vomit filled the air and mixed in with the smell of diesel fumes. It was revolting to say the least, which unsurprisingly caused a few more guys to start blowing chunks all over the place. I hated it. Every second of that ride felt like minutes, and minutes felt like hours. All I wanted was to get to the ship and get off this damn death trap. After a while, we had our first heat casualty. This guy was sitting on top of all the gear we had packed toward the front of the AAV. Our doc is the one that noticed him first. He shouted out for someone to shake him and wake him up. When they did that, he didn't budge. "Ah, fuck!" Doc screamed. He shot up out of his seat and clambered over everyone and their gear and gave him a sternum rub. Casualty woke up for a moment from the pain and promptly passed back out. Soon after that, we had our second heat casualty. This bigger guy sitting on top of more gear right across from me. He said, "I don't feel good, man," and brought his hand to his face, blowing chunks into his hand and through his fingers. The vomit that made its way through his fingers were blown right into my face. "Ah, fuck, man!" I exclaimed while grabbing my boonie cover and wiping my face clean. As soon as I cleared my face of his puke, I noticed he fell backwards and passed out. Once our doc noticed this, he yelled at our lieutenant aboard the AAV. "Sir, I'm popping the top and getting these guys some fresh air." Our LT yelled back, "Negative, we're almost there." Doc replied, "Sir, these guys are my responsibility. I am popping this fucking top." After he said that, our doc looked around the AAV for guys to start opening the top hatch. Myself and two other Marines shot up and started opening the hatch above us. Once we were able to get it open, Doc climbed his way to the top of the AAV and asked us to start feeding the two guys up to him. Picked up the first casualty, who was a scrawny little guy, and hoisted him up with ease. The second guy, however, was much larger and took us a little longer to get him up. Soon after we got him up, a wave crashed over the side, soaking us all and dumping water into the AAV. A splash of cool water felt refreshing, and even woke up the bigger guy enough for him to start coming to. He looked around and asked what was going on. We told him he had passed out from heat exhaustion, and we were trying to get him cooled down again and get a core temp. He looked at us after he heard core temp and said, "Nah, man, I'm good. Just need a little fresh air. I'll be alright." Soon after he said that, he was out again. While Doc was working on those guys, I looked down into the AAV. I noticed one of my good friends almost submerged under gear and had his eyes closed. I looked at the guy sitting next to him and told him, "Yo, smack him and wake him up." He looked over at my buddy and gave him a lazy slap. "Fuck!" I exclaimed. I went back down in the AAV and smacked him harder. All I got from him was a quiet groan and watched him open his eyes halfway before they shut again. "Help me get this shit off of him!" Pulled the packs off of him and ripped off his gear and clothes down to his underwear to start the cooling process. I asked the guys that helped me open the top hatch to help me get his body to the top up to Doc. After we got his body up with the other two, I kept scanning the AAV, looking for any signs of people passing out and making sure that everyone kept their eyes open. When I looked back on top of the AAV, I noticed Doc was checking the core temp of my buddy and moving to try and administer an IV. I was shocked at my doc's confidence to be able to administer an IV on top of an AAV in the middle of the ocean. It brought a strong sense of confidence over me in this man's ability to one day save my own life if need be. People began getting fearful that the AAV might sink. This entire time, water had been periodically splashing over the sides and into this death trap on tracks. I understood where the concern was coming from, but the AAV crew didn't seem too concerned, as the pumps on the AAV were designed to handle the water coming in and were able to pump it out just as quickly as it came in. Eventually, we got the word that we needed to bring these guys back down below and make haste toward the ship. They were right. We got them cooled down best we could, but we couldn't just float there forever and cause more people to heat case. We got their bodies back down and went as fast as the track would take us toward the ship, monitoring the casualties the entire time. We eventually made it on board without any more people passing out. When the ramp finally came down, I saw the medical personnel aboard the ship waiting with stretchers to take the casualties to the medical bay. As we helped carry them out and get them on the stretchers, I looked back into the AAV and noticed just how fucked up everything was. The clothes that belonged to the casualties, everyone's Kevlars and vests, was just thrown everywhere. Everything was soaked in water, and even a few of our main packs, including mine, had detached from the side of the AAV. Thankfully, they were eventually brought back by a naval rescue boat that found them floating in the ocean. When the next day arrived, we went back down to where the AAVs were parked on the ship and got ready to do the landing and finish out the next couple weeks of the training exercise. As for all the guys that heat cased the day before, they were all taken back to shore and sent back to the barracks to rest. As we loaded up, I saw Doc and asked him how my buddy was. He replied to me saying, "He was the worst of them all. Shit, if you didn't see him down there and he kept cooking, this story could have gone a lot differently." I was shocked at what he said, but was happy to hear my buddy was okay. Throughout the rest of the exercise, we had a few more heat casualties that also got sent back, and even saw one that was so bad an AAV had to clear a path in the trees to allow an ambulance to get to him and take him to the hospital. When the exercise was over with, we all went back to the barracks and were just happy that we had gotten back in time to have a weekend and relax. When I got up to my room, I saw my buddy sitting on his bed and asked him how he was feeling. "I'm okay, man." "Shit, dude, you were fucking out when I pulled you out of there. Fucking scared me a little bit." "That's what happens when you get stuck in the heat and just sweat out all your water." "Yeah, man. By the way, did Doc tell you that you were actually the worst of all the casualties? He said you had the highest core temp out of anyone." "No, but I believe it, man. That heat had me seeing shit." "What do you mean?" "Well, I kind of remember you trying to wake me up on the AAV. When I came to for half a second, I saw someone looking over your shoulder. Like this super pale old guy just staring at me." "That's fucking weird." "Yeah, and when I came to a little bit in the medical bay on ship, I saw him again. Standing in the corner, just staring at me and the other guys. Like he was waiting on something." "What do you think he was waiting on?" "Death. I think he was waiting on us to die. When I finally came to from all the IVs they administered, I never saw him again." "So, what? You think you saw the Grim Reaper or something?" "I don't know, man. Maybe."